Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into something quite a bit different. This is from a brewer. I've had quite a few of their beers, but this is a first for me. Sourced from Tavour, of course. This is Lil Beaver Brewer's Exploding Heads. That's the name of the beer. This is a sour New England style IPA that's been brewed with guava, vanilla, and lactose. 7% ABV on this one. Lil Beaver Brewery is based in Bloomington, Illinois. So first things first, with label art, it ought to be readily apparent to anybody that's had the candy. Their inspiration here is obviously from the Sour Warheads candy. So kind of an interesting, it's got their Lil Beaver Brewery beaver on the front. Looks pretty cool, nice and bright, kind of like you're grabbing yourself a bag of Sour Warheads. Now, for this beer, it is an IPA, but it's New England kind of milkshake style and sour and fruited. It's an amalgamation. This is going to be an interesting beer, I expect, because it's got everything but the kitchen sink. We've got a New England style IPA, milkshake with that lactose addition, fruited with the guava addition. They also added vanilla, and then to kick it up into a completely different direction, they soured it. So this ought to be a very unique beer drinking experience. When I saw this one pop up in Tavour, I said, I gotta grab it. Let's just see how this crazy beer is. So without further ado, we're going to get this cracked. We're using our all-purpose Sam Adams glass today, which ought to do just fine for this beer. Let's get this poured right in. Okay. It looks rather like a standard IPA. In fact, for a New England kind of milkshake style with that lactose, I'm surprised it's not super hazy. But it's not. It's mostly clear. I can definitely smell the sour off of it right away. I'm a good foot and a half away from this beer. You can smell the sour in there, no question about it. Visually, yeah, it looks like a standard IPA. If you didn't know what this was and you couldn't smell it, you would be none the wiser. Very, very active in terms of carbonation and mostly medium-sized bubbles. So you'll see it didn't really form that big of a head, which on an IPA, I like a bit of head. But since this is sour, I appreciate that the head's not there. It really is off-putting on a sour beer. Really shouldn't be there. This is a hybrid style. I wouldn't have docked points either way. If it formed a nice head, great. But it didn't, and it's sour, so there you go. So it looks great. Let's get up for a proper sniff. Oh, wow, yeah. Wow, that souring is really pungent on the nose. It smells distinctly sour, and it does rather smell kind of like candy. It doesn't smell like a normal sour beer. There's no underlying funkiness, there's no suggestion of Brettanomyces, but it definitely smells sour, and for sure, you can smell both that guava and that vanilla. It comes through quite clearly. While this is technically a New England IPA at its base, they didn't even tell you what hops were in it. In this amalgamation kind of hybrid style, I'm not sure it really matters that much, because that's just kind of the base beer style, and then they went in completely different directions with it. So I don't expect this to have a very big noticeable hop presence, nor do I expect it to have any discernible bitters. Maybe there will be some slight, it's still a beer after all, but the hops definitely are not the star of the show on this one. It's what they did with the fruit and what they did with the souring. So without further ado, we're gonna jump right in and see exactly what this beer's about. Oh, wow. Woo! Boy, this is an interesting beer. Interesting in a very, very good way. Wow. I'd like to say it's exactly what I expected it to be, but honestly, I had suspicions of what it might be if they did it how I would do a beer like this if I brewed it myself. And that, I gotta say, is where I'm pleasantly surprised. It does taste rather exactly like I expected to. And knowing what it is and what they did with it can't really prepare you mentally for what your taste buds are about to experience, because it's so different than any other beer I've had. This is its own animal. And I don't even really know how to properly categorize this, but I'm going to do my best with ratings, because it's its own unique thing, but it's very, very good. So the first thing I noticed right away, mouthfeel, there's quite a lot of resistance to this. It does feel thicker. That's clearly hearkening to that milkshake side of the milkshake IPA. In terms of the body, it's got some breadth to it. This is a 7%, so it's kind of average middle of the road for an IPA style beer, but it's got some weight. Again, I think that's coming from that milkshake side. But then the most readily apparent thing aside from texture is that big punch of sour and tart. And saw my face kind of do a pucker. Yeah, it's intense. So they're kind of Warhead-esque looking label here. I gotta say, yeah, they nailed it. This is sharp in terms of the sour and tartness. It's got a sharpness to it. And not in an off-putting way. It's very much in that sour candy-like fashion. That's really what this does taste like. Like guava and vanilla flavored Warheads or Sour Patch Kids or something really astringently sour with that big bite up front. That's exactly what this is in beer form. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. Another thing that I immediately noticed was just how prevalent, aside from the sour kick and the tart kick to it, just how intense that guava and that vanilla is. It's equal parts really. And they're definitely a dominant flavoring agent. So that is like the anchor for the flavor profile of the beer. Then the sensory experience is that big sour and tart kick. And then it's got this nice robust body, this ridiculously silky mouthfeel. And I can say it definitely has a long finish. This is a big, bold beer. It's very unique. And I think they pulled off what they set out to do. And I am a fan of this one. This is every bit as good as I hoped it would be. So we're going to jump back in. We're going to have us another sip here. We're really going to think on this, pick it apart, see if I can give a little more detail, make sure I didn't miss anything. But this one's awesome. I'm a big fan of this. Jump right in, dive number 2. That mouthfeel. It's so resistant. It's got such presence and such weight to it. It's so candy-like too. It's like drinking sour beer candy. Absolutely delicious. That guava just sings. It is pungent. Guava is a great beer that pairs on a lot of different great fruit that pairs in a lot of different beer styles. Really works well in this. It's a fantastic flavor. I love the flavor of guava, and it really, really works well in a sour beer style. I've had a lot of different sour beers with guava in it, but I've never had one that added vanilla to the mixture as well, or that played it in the part of kind of a milkshake IPA style. So this has got a lot of interesting things going for it, and all of the component parts really work together to, while this beer may look and sound wild and crazy, it's actually rather cohesive. It's very unique, but it all absolutely works in this package. That vanilla just gives this richness that really, for me, plays into kind of the textural sense of this beer. I know that might sound odd, but that vanilla flavor going in tandem with just the silky smooth mouthfeel and this weighty body, that's where I think the vanilla really pairs very well. And then it kind of counterbalances the intensity of the guava, which binds very, very well to the sour and tart side. So it's just got kind of this, aside from being an amalgam, it's got these kind of polar opposites that just completely work together in the package in which they're presented. I think this is a really clever beer. I think it's a very delicious beer. Let's talk about the finish. A New England style IPA traditionally is not going to have a ridiculously long finish. Sometimes you'll get some that go a lot more hop forward. Those are quite rare. They're kind of a unicorn in the New England style beer category. But this one's got a very long finish and it has nothing to do with hops. As I expected, there's really no discernible hop aroma, no discernible hop flavor. I'm sure that there's hops in this beer, but they're playing not even second fiddle. They're like, back row, third, last chair viola for my fellow classical music nerds. They're in the back. It's not the star of the show. It's doing its thing and it's out of the way. It really is all about the sour, the tart, the vanilla, the guava, and then the underlying New England milkshake upon which this beer is built. This is a seriously crazy beer. I'm a big, big fan. I absolutely love it, and it's truly a one of a kind and absolutely delicious. I'm going to take my time, sip on this one, comment my scores to the best of my ability, and when we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Lil Beaver Brewery's Exploding Heads, a sour New England style IPA brewed with vanilla, guava, and lactose, so also a milkshake, as well as a sour, as well as fruited. 7% ABV on this one. Lil Beaver Brewery is based in Bloomington, Illinois. So when I first jumped into this and was smelling it and getting the first taste and textural sense, I knew that this was kind of one of these beers that would be hard to categorize. I think it's best categorized as a sour New England IPA, maybe a sour fruited milkshake IPA, but nonetheless, that's where they call it, a sour New England style. So it took a bunch of different elements from all of these different styles of beer and crammed it into one. And I thought that this was going to be a challenging beer to rank, but I actually had a very easy time with it, mostly because it met and exceeded my expectations virtually across the board. So I'm not going to drag this out. Essentially, this beer was 1 point shy of a perfect score in all categories. I gave it a 9 in the appearance. Yes, it was a lovely beer. Yes, it looked like an IPA color-wise, but being that it was a New England style and a milkshake, you would expect to see a bit of haze in there. And this was actually not occluded at all. It was crystal clear. So 10s in every category except for appearance. It only lost 1 point there. And I'm really being rather nitpicky with that because it was just slight. So total score on Lil Beaver Brewery's Exploding Heads comes to a 99 out of 100. This is a very unique beer. Who do I think this beer is for? This beer is for somebody that really likes pungently sour beers. If you're just a New England style IPA fan or a fruited or a milkshake style, but you don't like sours, steer clear of this one. It's not for you. This is for the sour beer fan, 100%. Whether or not you drink IPAs at all as a sour beer drinker or New England style or fruited beers, that's really just it's an amalgamation, but at its heart, it's a sour beer and an extremely well done one at that. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.